Recently here on China Take, one of our hot comments concerned a creative gentleman by the name of Zhao Xiyong. This inventive imposter has spent the last 3 years passing himself off as the head of China's State Council Research Office. Now that's no mid-ranking bureaucrat. In fact, in China's complex bureaucratic hierarchy, that equates to vice minister level. Now with these impeccable, if admittedly false, credentials, Mr. Zhao spent his free time, it's not clear actually what he does for a living, wandering around the province of Yunnan and other provinces, doing what top officials from Beijing do best. He visited factories and farms, led delegations on inspection tours, had his photo taken cutting ribbons, made long speeches whose lack of content sounded pretty genuine. And all the while he was fawned upon and wined and dined by local underlings. In short, generally treated the way that local officials have always treated mandarins from the capital, over the mountains and far away, with deference and, importantly, with unquestioning obedience. Now, Zhao was only tripped up when he promised to turn the provincial capital, Kunming, into a special economic zone. When word eventually reached the real State Council in Beijing, they wrote back to say that he did not work for the State Council and no research team had ever been sent to Yunnan. Chinese media have reported the story, albeit not in great detail, but with the ingenious Mr. Zhao on the lam, the online community has become fascinated with his complex and apparently meaningless scam, and with how easy it appears to be to pose as a senior party official if you aim high enough. To take a look at what's being said about this bizarre affair, let's cross over to the newsroom now and our researcher, Julia Liu. Well, Julia, whatever about his morals, you have to hand it to Zhao for ingenuity and the skill to be able to fool so many people so completely for so long. What's being said about him online?
Well, as you know, Chinese net users are generally all for tough punishment for wrongdoers and so on. But in this case, perhaps because the victims Zhao's parents were officials themselves, well, he seems to have gained quite a few fans. And this post on zhgpl.com is quite typical. At least he's a great actor. He's mastered all the behavior of officials in China to a T. Just looking at the picture, he's totally the archetypal official we see on the news. And some posters emphasize claims that Zhao not only didn't accept bribes, but did in fact attract the funds for some local governments. SY54509 has said this to say on Weibo.com. He made real achievements. He brought projects to Lodi in Hunan, and he had the persistence to travel everywhere by himself for research. And he had knowledge and didn't take bribes. Isn't he better than many officials who only pursue personal gain? And this poster on infcm.com calls Liu Chang has another example that shows that not all of Zhao's promises was empty. What's amazing about the Zhao case is that he actually did manage to attract some investment for the Yuxi government. He simply played a mediator between investors and local governments using his influential title to sway their decisions. And I have to admit that, that he actually qualifies for his title pretty well.
But surely in this day and age with instant communications, it can't be that difficult to check up on the authenticity or identity of someone, especially from a local government. But in Zhao's case, not a single local official raised any suspicion before the State Council actually told them that Zhao was an imposter. How come?
Well, on this issue, many posters mention the seemingly unquestionable authority of officials from the central government. Liu Yue says on Sohu.com. The normal procedure for the research visit from the State Council is that they send a letter to the local government announcing the visit. But in this, he just appeared, and the local governments would rather lose some money than take the risk of questioning and perhaps offending someone powerful. And that's why Zhao always chooses smaller cities where officials have little knowledge about the State Council or several levels higher. And this poster on ChinaNews.com also mentions the fear of power and the long history of this kind of treatment for important visitors from the government in Beijing. It seems to have become a tradition that the local governments pull out all the stops when it comes to treating officials from the central government. That's because of the power imbalance. These people represent the all-powerful central governments after all. And Bin Dan Rushui says this on QQ.com. It's largely due to the fact that promotions among officials in China actually depend on how important your connections are, rather than how well you do your job. And these scammers simply take advantage of this, and that's why cheating them is so easy. And finally, Da Gongzai has this to say about why none of the local governments admitted to being taken in, and even after the letter from the State Council made it clear. Admitting you've been fooled equals making mistakes. Of course, silence is the best option. Otherwise, someone might lose their job. And what's more, the money spent on the entertaining of Zhao came from taxpayers rather than their personal money. So it's not a big deal for them, actually.
So do net users feel that after all this exposure, some lessons will have been learned by these local governments?
Well, only partially seems to be the answer to that, actually. Well, one word that's mentioned many times by net users when commenting on this issue is transparency. Most of them believe that it's precisely the lack of transparency in government information that resulted in this farce. This poster says on 163.com. We can check the authenticity of journalists on the internet now. Then why not that of officials? It's still pretty hard to find any information about officials in China at all levels. Well, the official websites of many bureaus seem to be in competition to see who can provide the least practical information. And here, another poster says on Hexun.com. It's not hard to solve a single case like this. That's why most net users aren't that concerned about what happens to Zhao, but more about what this case demonstrates. And what a Chinese officials urgently needs to do now is to get rid of this worship of status and improve respect for people and the law. And finally, some net users are hopeful that new approaches under the current leadership may have an effect. In particular, the current much-hyped frugality campaign. And I'll finish up with this post from Cao Liping on zryb.com. Now there are so many restrictions on these research and investigation tools in the just released regulations from the central government. Let's just hope it will be properly implemented and prevent such a fiasco from ever happening again.
Okay, thanks for that, Julia. And that was China Take researcher Julia Liu with a reaction from the online community to the enterprising Mr. Zhao Xiyong, who, as we said, spent 3 years impersonating government officials in provinces around China. Next up on China Take, some of the top trending phrases on China's most popular search engines.